In 2025, a specific financial milestone was crossed that should have been on every news channel in America, yet it passed with barely a whisper. For the first time in history, the United States government is now spending more money paying interest on its national debt than it spends on its entire national defense. Let that sink in. The greatest military power the world has ever known is now paying more to its creditors than to its soldiers. This isn't just a budget statistic, it is the death rattle of an empire's financial dominance. While you go about your daily life, paying more for groceries and watching your savings stagnate, a silent revolution is taking place in the global banking halls of Shanghai, Riyadh, and Moscow. They aren't declaring war with missiles. They are declaring war with ledgers, gold, and digital code. This is the quiet coup, and it has already begun. To understand why this is happening now, you have to look at the invisible contract that has held the global economy together for 50 years. In 1974, just off the heels of a gold standard collapse, the United States made a genius deal with Saudi Arabia. We promised them military protection and equipment. In exchange, they promised to price every single barrel of oil in United States dollars. This was the birth of the Petrodollar. If a country wanted energy, they needed dollars. If they needed dollars, they had to send goods to the United States or buy US debt. It created an artificial, permanent demand for our currency that allowed us to print money without immediate hyperinflation. It was the ultimate cheat code. But in June 2024, that 50-year agreement quietly expired. There was no renewal ceremony. Instead, Saudi Arabia announced they were open to trading oil in other currencies, the Chinese yuan, the euro, even digital assets. The monopoly is broken. The infinite demand for the dollar is drying up, but the printing press is still running hot. This shift didn't happen by accident. It was accelerated by a specific miscalculation in Washington, the weaponization of the financial system. When the US seized hundreds of billions of dollars in Russian sovereign assets following the invasion of Ukraine, it sent a shockwave of terror through the rest of the world. Nations like China, Brazil, and India looked at their own dollar reserves and realized they weren't savings, they were hostages. If you cross the United States politically, your money can be turned off with a flip of a switch. This realization triggered the most aggressive de-dollarization campaign in human history. It isn't loud, and it isn't televised, but the data is screaming. Look at what the world's central banks are doing with their money. They aren't buying US Treasury bonds like they used to. They are buying gold. In 2024, and throughout 2025, central bank gold buying hit record highs. China bought gold for month after month, relentlessly converting their paper dollars into hard assets. They know what is coming. They are building a lifeboat because they can see the ship is taking on water. This gold rush has pushed prices to unprecedented levels, smashing through ceilings that experts thought were impossible just a few years ago. This isn't speculation. It is an exit strategy. These nations are preparing for a world where the dollar is just one currency among many, not the king of the hill. But the physical gold accumulation is only the analog side of this war. The digital front is even more dangerous to American hegemony. For decades, the US controlled the SWIFT banking system, the messaging network that facilitates global money transfers. If you got kicked off SWIFT, you were economically exiled. But now, alternatives are live. The Project mBridge initiative, developed by the Bank for International Settlements with China and other partners, creates a digital bridge for central banks to swap currencies directly. It completely bypasses the dollar and the US banking system. It allows a tanker of oil to be sold from the Middle East to China, settled in digital yuan, in seconds, without a single cent touching a New York bank. This technology renders US sanctions obsolete. It builds a parallel economy that is immune to Washington's influence. Domestically, the consequences of this quiet coup are already hitting your wallet, even if the root cause is being obscured. When global demand for the dollar drops, those dollars come home. The inflation you have felt since 2020 isn't just about supply chains or corporate greed. It is about the dilution of purchasing power. The Federal Reserve is trapped in a nightmare scenario. They need to keep interest rates high to fight inflation, but high rates are making the interest payments on the national debt mathematically impossible to sustain. Remember that statistic from the start? We are paying nearly $1 trillion a year just in interest. That is money that cannot build roads, cannot fund schools, and cannot pay for healthcare. It is money burned just to keep the lights on for another day. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, now expanded to include major energy and population centers, is capitalizing on this weakness. While they have faced internal disagreements and threats of tariffs from the US administration, their long-term trajectory is unified. They represent the majority of the world's population and a massive chunk of its natural resources. They are tired of importing American inflation. They are tired of funding American wars by buying American debt. They are building a closed loop of trade that excludes the West. When half the world decides they no longer need your money to do business, your money loses its value. It is simple supply and demand. So, what does the end of the dollar look like? It won't be a Hollywood movie scene where the stock market goes to zero overnight and society collapses into dust. It will be a slow, grinding decline in your standard of living. It looks like persistent inflation that never quite goes back to 2%. It looks like imported goods becoming significantly more expensive. It looks like a travel destination you could once afford becoming out of reach because the exchange rate has flipped. It is a process of impoverishment where you work harder for money that buys less. The privilege of printing the global reserve currency allowed Americans to live beyond their means for decades. That privilege is being revoked. The scary part is the silence. The mainstream financial media talks about quarterly earnings and tech stocks, ignoring the tectonic plates shifting beneath the surface. They discuss the symptoms, not the disease. They will tell you inflation is transitory or under control, while central banks around the world are frantically dumping dollars for gold. They watch the stock market hit new highs, ignoring that it is rising in nominal terms because the currency it is priced in is worth less. It is the illusion of wealth in a burning house. The coup is quiet because it is designed that way. If China or Saudi Arabia dumped all their US debt tomorrow, it would hurt them too. They are selling it off slowly, orderly, ensuring they get out before the crash. They are draining the pool one bucket at a time so you don't notice the water level dropping until you are standing on dry ground. By the time the average person realizes the dollar has lost its crown, the transfer of wealth will be complete. The assets that matter, energy, gold, land, commodities, will be held by those who saw this coming. This is not a message of doom, but a wake-up call. The era of easy American money is over. The 50-year holiday from economic reality that the petrodollar provided has ended. We are entering a multipolar world where financial power is shared, and where the United States must actually pay its bills like everyone else. For a nation addicted to debt, that transition will be painful. The quiet coup is not a conspiracy theory. It is a geopolitical realignment visible in every central bank report and trade agreement signed in the last 2 years. The dollar isn't dying, it's just being demoted. But for a currency that has lived as a king, a demotion feels exactly like a death. The world is changing. The only question is, are you watching the distraction or are you watching the money?